Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of the Planning and Development Council of the Town of Oakville. Madam Clerk, I understand we have regrets.
Yes, we have regrets from Councillor Hutchins this evening.
Thank you. Council, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Thank you. Would two of you like to move us into Committee of the Whole? Councillor Adams and Councillor Lapworth. All those in favor? Opposed if any? And we are resolved, that carries, and we are resolved into Committee of the Whole. And Council, before you are your two consent items, and these are the items staff believe. Councillor Knoll.
I was just preparing to give you the motion to approve the consent items.
Thank you. I welcome that. And as I was saying to the public, these are the items that staff believe are so routine and non-controversial that they could be consented to without further examination. Am I right? Is there a sec? Oh, I don't need a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed if any? And we were right. Thank you, Councillor. So that brings us to our confidential consent items. And once again, same judgment. And I'll look to see if there's a motion. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Mr. Merrill. Happy to pass the staff recommendation.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed if any? And once again, they were right. That brings us to our public hearing item of the evening. This is the public meeting report on the zoning bylaw amendment for First Gulf Corporation for 514 South Service Road East. And the purpose of this meeting, this hearing item, is to receive comments from the public. A decision on this item is not yet scheduled. And if we will give our attention to the planners, they will edify us. Trish, we're all ears.
Thank you, Mayor Burton. Good evening. The purpose of this report is to introduce the zoning bylaw amendment application for the First Gulf Corporation in conjunction with the required statutory public meeting. As noted by my report, there are no decisions to be made at, at this time, and the report is to be received by council. The property is located at 514 South Service Road East, at the southwest corner of the South Service Road and Chartwell Road. The property is located within the Midtown Oakville and is impacted by the Midtown Oakville Transportation Class Environmental Assessment. The site is approximately 2.5 hectares with 187 meters of frontage on South Service Road East and 84 meters of frontage on Chartwell Road. The Morrison-Wedgwood diversion channel runs underground on the west side of the site and partially on the southwest corner. There are a number of trees along the western and southern edges of the site. The site currently has a one-story industrial use building that is occupied by Hennings Automotive, and I understand the applicant has put in an application to demolish it. The applicant proposes to rezone the subject property for an E1 employment zone from an E1 employment zone to an appropriate Midtown employment zone with development regulations consistent with the new Midtown zoning that will be considered by council in 2015. The zoning bylaw amendment will be a site-specific Midtown employment zone that will permit the lands to be developed for a 4-story professional office building with over 9,000 square meters of gross floor area and 413 parking spaces. The driveway access is proposed from South Service Road there and Chartwell Road, and Chartwell Road down here. And the proposed location at the northeast corner of the site of this building would allow for the long-term development of a second office building in this area of the site, also fronting onto South Service Road. The subject lands are designated office employment within the Chartwell district of the area of Midtown Oakville. The Chartwell district is anticipated to be developed as a business campus style setting with permissions for prestige office uses, including high-tech industries and professional offices best suited for areas with a high degree of access and visibility along a major transportation corridor. Livable Oakville policies speak to the need to provide a balance of population and employment in the town that encourages the development of employment lands that include uses in compact built form, site design that is transit supportive, and minimize surface parking areas. Planning for Midtown is happening comprehensively as part of the Midtown strategy. The strategy includes the EA for the road network and stormwater infrastructure, new official plan policies, zoning, urban design guidelines, and parking studies. The town has completed the Midtown Class Environmental Assessment to determine the infrastructure needs to accommodate growth in Midtown up to the year 2031, as identified in the Livable Oakville Plan. This is not as clear as I had hoped. The impact of the Cross Avenue extension has been evaluated through the Midtown Class EA and impacts the southern portion of the site. I'm going to zoom into that, sorry. There's the site. So you can see the Cross Avenue extension as proposed by the Midtown EA comes through the southern portion of the site. The red would be the proposed right-of-way that we would require. The green is grading. And you can see also a little bit of right-of-way on the South Service Road up here as well. A draft official plan amendment for the Midtown growth area was brought forward in May of 2014 to coincide with the presentation of the draft zoning, urban design, and parking strategies, and the preferred alternative to the road network as recommended by the Midtown Class EA. The applicant and the owners of the site were involved with the landowners meetings for the Midtown environmental assessment, so they have seen these drawings. Upon final approval of the Midtown EA by the Ministry of the Environment, the recommendation report on the official plan amendment for Midtown to implement the preferred road network will be brought forward to council. Oops, that wasn't supposed to happen so quick. Zoning for this site, the 1984-63 zones the property E1 employment with a special provision that restricts the drive-through use on this site. The E1 zone permits a wide range of employment uses, including administrative offices, business, professional, and medical offices. The zoning bylaw 2014-14 is currently under appeal with the Ontario Municipal Board. While appeals remain active, development applications on land subject to this bylaw will need to comply with both this bylaw and 1984-63. In bylaw 2014-14, the subject lands are zoned Midtown Transitional Employment, or MTE, which is intended to freeze the building envelopes to those legally existing at this date. New buildings and structures would require a planning application, allowing council to review a proposal and establish conformity with the Livable Oakville Plan. In addition, you can see under the 2014-14, you can see that some of the property is zoned N for natural area to reflect the existing water course. Matters to be considered with this application as we move forward are conformity with Livable Oakville Plan, including land use, future roads, and parking, zoning, the implementation of the Midtown goals and objectives related to the Livable Oakville Plan, and planning documents, including the Midtown Class EA. With the EA, we want to ensure that the proposed design protects for any land conveyances required as identified in the EA and future Livable Oakville official plan amendment. Servicing is another matter. The in-zone and the Midtown zoning amendment, the proposed zoning amendment would have the effect of replacing the transitional zone, which came in with 2014-14, with a site-specific bylaw to reflect the design of the proposal. Included in the proposed zoning bylaw submitted by the applicant are site-specific standards, including yard setbacks, landscape strips along the roadways, and a minimum parking standard. Other matters include architectural and urban design, appropriate parking requirements, transit supportive development and the capacity of the road network, and the layout of the development, parking, and pedestrian circulation throughout the site. The next steps for this application include the further review and analysis, as well as continued consultation with the reviewing agencies. The recommendation outlined in the report are that comments from the public with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment application by First Gulf Corporation be received. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you. Through you, could you go back to the aerial shot showing the proposed crossings?
This
There
one?
we go. That's it, yeah, we have representatives with us from the Trafalgar Chartwell Residents Association and the Chartwell Maple Grove Residents Association, and I've received a number of phone calls, as I'm sure they have as well, in terms of people feeling that the Chartwell crossing was still going to be going ahead. So I point this out more for the references of the Residents Association so they can answer as well. We have no plans for that crossing.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we did take another look at it through the EA, just because all options are to be considered. It was looked at many, many, many years ago and dismissed. We did take another look at it and set it aside again, dismissed it.
I appreciate the clarification. There are 413 parking spaces called for. What would the normal requirement be? What would you look at normally in terms of good planning for a building of that size?
The number has escaped me. It's 1 for 34 square meters, I believe. It's about half or slightly more than half of the spots that we would require. They are looking for 4 spaces per 1,000 square meters or 100 square meters, I believe. They're looking to move that parking ratio up in order to meet tenant needs.
So there's an abundance of parking, and in the report it says that the applicant may at some point consider a building to the west, to the Morrison diversion. So
To the west of the building.
So would that replace the parking on that?
It would. At that time, they would seriously need to consider some structured parking. We are talking with the applicant on looking at some structured parking above, whatever's above and beyond the required parking that we would normally ask for. Look at that as potentially being in some type of surface parking.
Thank you. And if you could flip forward to the slide showing the proposed cross industry. There we go. So everybody's staying well away from the green area, I assume. And so the parking will be across the top. If and when the second building comes to fruition, we'll see at that time, as you mentioned, structured parking. My concern is the abutment into the proposed Cross Avenue. We don't hear back on the EA until some point later this year.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are hoping to hear back from the ministry maybe in March. I was told it's imminent, their response. At that time, we have 3 Part 2 orders on the EA. At that time, we're hoping to hear from about all 3. As we move forward with this application, we look to protect that right-of-way from development within what we are looking to acquire at a future date.
Yeah, this will be the second new build on the north side. The PricewaterhouseCoopers building being the first one, and the second one, it looks like we may have the same situation in terms of the Cross Avenue and the parking spaces interfering, if we will. And so I know that the demolition is imminent on the current building. Mm-hmm. My understanding is that the proponent would like to build as quickly as possible. I'm just wondering if what resolution we'll have before the shovels get in the ground.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, timing of the EA from the MOE and how we choose to proceed. The one thing we want to just keep in mind is we don't want to preclude the options for Cross Avenue to connect to industry. It was included in Livable Oakville previously, the Cross Avenue extension. This is something that we're looking at through the EA as this Cross Avenue to shift it in any way has a domino effect all the way down the street, the proposed extension.
All right, that's it for now. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors with questions? Madam Clerk, I understand we have delegations who'd like to bring information for Council's consideration.
Our first delegation is Danny Morowitz, representing the Chartwell Maple Grove Residents Association.
Sure. Mr. Mallon, welcome. Council looks forward to the information that both of your groups can bring us.
Thank you, Mayor Burton. Good evening, councillors. Mayor, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you this evening. I believe Danny Morowitz, leading Chartwell Maple Grove RA, and ourselves in Trafalgar Chartwell have similar concerns. And our concerns do not relate specifically to the development as it's proposed. Indeed, replacing the existing single-storey industrial building on that site would be a considerable improvement, particularly with a modern commercial block of the type that is proposed by First Gulf. In addition to which, the previous building, First Gulf constructed, PricewaterhouseCoopers building, is a very nice, attractive building. So we have no quarrel with the development as it stands on the site. Our concern relates to traffic, and particularly traffic management as it is today, and the steady deterioration in the rush hour traffic particularly that's occurring as Midtown starts to become populated. You may not recall, Mayor Burton, but we first discussed this 2 years, 10 months and 2 weeks ago. I remember it well. And what we talked about at that time was Trafalgar Road. We're currently experiencing backups on Cornwall all the way back at times to Maple Grove. What's causing it? This is occurring at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, roughly speaking. And what's causing it is traffic cannot get onto Trafalgar Road and head north. Why is that? Because Trafalgar Road is blocked solid and the traffic lights are not functional because there's simply too much traffic. Our concern is that as these developments come before council one by one for the Midtown area traffic, and the traffic associated with each of these developments is going to get worse and worse, and we will find this gridlock effect is going to be extended in terms of the hours and in terms of the number of roads that are involved. We urge council to consider measures to alleviate the gridlock that occurs on Trafalgar Road. It needs relief fairly desperately. We recognise there are a funds issue, but surely, since this is a provincially mandated intensification effort, we would respectfully ask if the province cannot facilitate this intensification by helping out with some funds to build some roads. And really, I will stop there and not say any more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mallon, for your information. Ms. Morowitz, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. All I have to say is ditto. I knew Dave would be more eloquent, but our concern is with the traffic. And even today, I was coming south trying to make the turn actually onto the South Surface Road, and the vehicles coming out of the PricewaterhouseCoopers building backed up along the South Service Road. Trafalgar Road going north was absolutely locked down. 3 people ran the light as I was waiting to turn left, and I had to wait so that I didn't get hit to make that left turn. It's already bad. Adding anything more is just going to make it even worse. And you're talking about 400 spaces, maybe that's 200 cars coming and going at rush hour, but that's a lot. And I don't think we've got the capacity on that road, on the intersections around there to hold it. So that's our concern. Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing information. Are there others? Madam Clerk?
We have Denise Baker here to speak to this item.
Anyone else? Are there any other members of the public with information for council on this matter? Thank you. I'll restrict it to table and look for a motion to receive the information we've heard from the public. Councillor Giddings, thank you. All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that carries. Thank you very much to the public for coming out and sharing your information with us for the benefit of everyone. The next item is the discussion item, and we have before us which is the Kerr Village Community Improvement Plan Building Facade Improvement Grant Program, and the recommendation is to continue the pilot and to waive application fees for encroachment agreements as detailed in your report. And if we give our attention to Brad Sunderland, he can reprise for the public the matter that council's already studied. Brad, everyone is eager to hear.
So good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I'm here tonight to give a presentation on the 2014 monitoring report for the pilot building facade improvement grant program, which is part of the Kerr Village Community Improvement Plan. So a monitoring report on the building facade improvement grant program is a requirement of the Kerr Village Community Improvement Plan, which was approved by council in January of 2014. It is required following any year where a budget has been allocated to the grant program. The purpose of the program is to ensure the program is administered, the purpose of the report, rather, is to ensure the program is administered effectively, to ensure the grant program continues to meet the goals and objectives of the Community Improvement Plan and the Livable Oakville Plan, and to recommend any adjustments that might be required to the grant program as necessary to improve its effectiveness. So in the launch year of 2014, the Pilot Facade Improvement Grant Program received 12 applications. 3 of the applications have been completed and grants have been awarded. 4 have been approved to undertake improvements with committed funds, and those are at varying stages of completion. And 5 were submitted and then subsequently withdrawn. Of those withdrawn applications, one applicant had 3 applications and withdrew them due to timing conflicts with other ongoing projects that he had, and did express interest to reapply in 2015. Some of the other reasons for the withdrawal included applicants being uncertain about what improvements to undertake and maybe submitting an application prematurely and didn't really know. Also, an applicant submitted an incomplete application and did choose not to continue. Additionally, an applicant had concerns with other town processes required for some of the improvements that he was going to be undertaking, which involved encroachment agreements, which I'll talk about later. So the funds dispersed through the actual grant program in 2014, so $150,000 in grant funds were made available for the 2014 program year. This would allow approximately 15 projects to be completed. Funding for the program, again, is provided from the Bonusing Reserve Fund for Kerr Village. So approximately 23% of the 2014 budget has been awarded and committed to projects at approximately $65,450. If no applications were withdrawn, and we did see the full 12 applications go through, we would see nearly 65% of the budget used for the 2014 project year. So one of the main ways that we have kind of solicit feedback for the program to see if it is on track is to speak to the applicants themselves and give them their feedback. The applicants who did complete the program specifically mentioned that the process was quick and painless and that it was straightforward and easy to follow. So I think those two quotes, more or less, from some of the emails that we did receive does show that the program is on track. Some of the other comments we received was that the upfront work required can be viewed as cumbersome. So that's just getting the various quotes that are required to submit, as well as getting drawings prepared. Some people aren't very artistic, but we do look at the drawings, even if they're just scribbles and showing us what they're planning to do. Another concern was that multiple town processes, if required as part of their application, can be a bit confusing. So if they are planning to change their sign, they will need a sign permit, which is through the bylaw department, as well as if they need an encroachment agreement that's administered through the engineering and construction department. So it's a bit of, they feel like they get here and they're running around. So it's just guiding them in the right direction. So this is some of the program results that we've seen. So this is 242 Kerr Street, and some of the improvements that were done on this property was to use stucco on the building and to add some additional trim work around the windows. Additionally, they removed a step that was encroaching onto town property. You can see in the bottom photo there, and just cleaned that up. This is an improvement that was made to the Gingerman's Social Eatery located at 335 Kerr Street, and they added garage doors to their facade which open in the summertime so they can have open air seating and it's still covered. This is the Rodine Cooperative at 340 to 356 Kerr Street. They did replace their awnings and they did a large paint job on the front of their building, painting all the trim work and the panels at the front. And this plaza is 288 to 300 Kerr Street. This facade was improved, the gables were improved, adding stucco work and additional louvers, as well as stonework on the northerly facade and underneath all the windows along Kerr Street. So other findings from the program are discussed in the staff report, but specific mention is being given here to the encroachment agreement. Through the application review process, it was revealed that some properties have existing encroachments, such as stairs on town property. So as part of the eligibility requirement of the grant program, the property must meet all necessary municipal requirements. So in a situation where there is an encroachment, the engineering and construction department seeks for the encroachment to be remedied either by the applicant entering into an encroachment agreement with the town or for the encroachment to be removed. This process has led to a few challenges for some applicants because of the required additional fees associated with entering into an encroachment agreement or the work or potential work that is to be borne by the applicant. So to address some of these concerns, staff are recommending that council direct staff to waive application fees for encroachment agreements which are required to remedy existing encroachments as a result of approved facade improvements under the Kerr Village Building Facade Improvement Grant Program. The opportunity to waive application fees is outlined in the CIP and is subject to agreement with the individual departments and approved by Town Council. Waiving application fees is an opportunity that can be provided to applicants to further the goal of revitalizing Kerr Village. Waiving application fees, however, will not eliminate all costs associated with obtaining an encroachment agreement. Other costs, such as obtaining a survey and having a survey done, would still apply. So in its launch year, there have been numerous works completed contributing to overall improvement of the streetscape. Staff are encouraged by these improvements and look forward to promoting the program and continuing to elevate the quality of the submissions in future program years. The Kerr Village BIA also remains supportive of the program and its continuation in 2015. In its launch year, staff view the program as being effective to achieve the goal of a revitalized Kerr Village business district as expressed in the Livable Oakville plan. So with that, staff are putting forward the following recommendations for council's consideration: that the staff report in front of you be received, that staff continue the pilot Kerr Village Building Facade Improvement Grant Program in 2015, and that council direct staff to waive application fees for encroachment agreements which are required to remedy existing encroachments as a result of approved facade improvements under the Kerr Village Building Facade Improvement Grant Program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to see direct and physical improvement in an area. And I hope that everyone on staff who's helped to make this happen puts their head on the pillow at night knowing that they made the town better and wakes up in the morning ready to come back and do it again. Thanks very much for this. Councillor Duddick?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to build upon that, thank planning staff, in particular yourself and Diane, for all the hard work you've done. Part of the reason we've been so successful, and I know we went through sort of growing pains at the onset of this, is your willingness to go back and work with the applicants and say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? But the mayor's comments are exactly the reason why I think we need to pursue this for yet another year. And that is that once people have seen some of the facade improvements taking place, they can see something tangible, and lo and behold, there's been several others I know through the Kerr Village Business Improvement Area Board have said that people are now talking about it and saying, how can I apply for that and how can I incorporate it? So well done. Thank you very much for all your hard work.
Thank you, Councillor. I've 3 over here and then 2 more here, at least, I'm sure. So I'll start at the end, Councillor Adams, and then Councillor Knoll, then, no, sorry, Councillor Khan, Councillor Adams, Councillor Knoll.
Thank you very much for the report. One of the things that I noticed was over here, you don't have what the cost is if we were to waive the application fee. What are we looking at in terms of dollar value per each type of project?
So the cost, through you, Mr. Mayor, the cost of the actual application fee, I believe, is in the ballpark of $1,100 per application.
And if you can explain the process, I understand that I think they can get a credit up to $10,000, maximum up to $10,000, and 12 if it's on a corner or something like that. How does that work? Do they actually get the work done first and then submit all their bills, and then we look at it and determine whether or not that's acceptable, or do we have to approve it ahead of time?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that's correct. They submit all of the receipts for the work that has been completed. Staff go out and actually do a site inspection to make sure that the work that they said they were going to do has been done. And we review all those materials. They submit pictures as well. That's a requirement. It's basically the final package that they submit to us, and we review that.
And just one last question. It was a little vague, in it, or maybe it's just the way I read it. Your discussion about maintenance,
Right.
maintenance type project, you said that that's not considered, but on certain occasions it becomes part of it. So can you elaborate on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so the main part of the program is to encourage more substantial improvements. So the project that you saw there with the stucco really is a transformative project that you can see a visual bigger impact. Some things that may be considered more maintenance related, I mean, painting for one can be considered maintenance to some degree, but we do look at it to make sure that all the improvements together do create an improved facade. So in the case of the Rodine Co-op building, they were replacing all of their awnings in addition to the paint. And so in that circumstance, we may consider it, you know, more of a larger scale project. So one of the items in the actual CIP itself is that they do have to give us 2 improvements as part of any application. They have to be improving two separate things, and that's partly to try to encourage more improvements to happen.
As long as the maintenance is ancillary to the main project of improving the facade.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. I just have one question on page 7. You talk about the committed funds for the project and how they are being rolled over or not being rolled over. Can you explain that again or better? It wasn't quite clear to me whether the funds go into a reserve to then be added to the next year's funds cumulatively, or whether we start afresh with just $150,000 per year.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I've been informed by the Finance Department, I believe, that every year we will start with just $150,000 for that program year. However, the funds that aren't used in a subsequent year are basically put back into the reserve fund.
Which reserve fund?
So the bonusing, I believe it's called the bonusing fund for Kerr Village. And so if that money isn't drawn upon for 2014, we have money to carry over. We do start with $150,000, but if we do go over that $150,000, we can draw off that money that wasn't used from 2014.
So it's not capped at 150 necessarily per year?
It is, in the sense that new projects would be $150,000, but the reason why it's carried forward is projects that aren't finished in the 2014 year, but have been applied for in the 2014 year. The money is taken from the 2015 budget, but if it can still be essentially taken from that reserve that's carried over.
Okay, that's not clear to me. So there's $100,000 that's could have been required from 2014. There's $50,000 left, and of that, there's another 33 that was never used, never committed because they were withdrawn. What happens to the 33 and what happens to the 50?
So it all, basically, through you, Mr. Mayor, whatever was not spent in 2014 goes back into a reserve, the reserve fund, which is where all this money for the whole program is being drawn from.
So
The
at the
bonusing
end,
fund.
so at the end of last year, only 65 would have been spent?
Actually, at the end of last year, it would have been only, if I can find the
Or is it
number,
only the 29?
the 29, correct?
So the rest of it's sitting in a reserve account?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, and because we've only committed another 35 or close to 36, and 33 was withdrawn, we've only committed or spent 65, and the remainder is available in 2015 for new projects, whether or not they came forward in 2014?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe it's every program year starts fresh at 150,000, no matter what. That unused portion, so in 2014, we did only spend to this point $29,592.50, which is the grants that had been awarded already. The other ones that we've committed funds to, even though we didn't take it out of the 2014 because those projects weren't completed in 2014, we will take it out of the 2015. However, if say we get 15 applications and the full $150,000 is allotted to new projects in 2015, and we don't have, in that year's budget, we didn't have enough to fund the projects that we've already committed funds to in 2014, that's when we could still take that money and use it to spend for those additional 4 projects.
So what do we do with the additional funds that are unrelated to the 35 in 2014? So it looks to me like there's 84 something, call it 85,000 for simplicity, left that's uncommitted from 2014. What happens to that 85,000?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that goes back into the bonusing reserve fund.
And what happens to bonusing reserve funds?
I believe it is a fund that we can draw upon for bonusing projects in the future, which may be different projects, not necessarily related to this.
Okay, so it goes to the section
37.
37 funds?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Your Worship, I don't have a question. I'm going to declare pecuniary interest on this matter. I'm a shareholder and director of a corporation which is a member of the Curster BIA and could potentially be an applicant for this program in the future, so I'm going to withdraw.
That's a high recommendation. Thank you very much. And we will note that you're not part of this. Over here, I had Councillor DeMoff and Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Last Monday, I was speaking to one of the business owners who had the improvement done and could not, the words, I think they were probably his that were in the report about it being painless. So it's awfully nice for us as councillors to speak to people who do deal with the town, who use the word painless and efficient, and so well done. One of the questions that came up in speaking with him, though, was, is there a limit per business or per property? So there was a bit of confusion when we were speaking as to whether or not another business in that particular property could apply for a grant, or whether he had used up the amount that was available within that whole property.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the way the program was set up is that it's based on property parcel ownership. So a property owner may have 4 tenants, for example. If the property owner chose to do improvements for the entire building, that person could do so. If a tenant within that building expressed interest to do improvements for their unit only, they can also apply, but they do need the permission of the property owner to do it. So that $10,000, say, for that property is for the whole property. So if the one tenant wanted to do improvements to their own business, then the property owner would have to realize that they are using up that money for that one business and not for the whole building. That being said, after, I believe, 2 years, so if, say, a tenant wanted to do improvements this year, in 2 years' time, because it is intended to be a pilot program for 5 years, in 2 years' time, they could reapply for another unit in that building, or reapply for the whole building.
Okay, so that particular tenant has used the pot for that building, so another tenant in that building can't get any improvements done for this year, but they could apply next year. Is that right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Thank you, and thank you again for a job well done on this.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know how far I'm going to get with this tonight, but I actually have an amendment that I want to make to the motion that I presume is on the floor. Well, then I can't make an amendment until it's on the floor. Councillor O'Mara told me he has a question, so I'll succeed and let him go first, Your Worship.
Thanks very much. Sorry. I just wanted to clarify a couple things, and pardon me if it's just my newism not understanding. So to move off of what Councillor Khan was asking, again, it said about $1,100 for the encroachment fees. How many encroachment fees would we be looking at waiving, or we don't know, or do we know what we're dealing with in the area?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe the Director of Engineering and Construction agreed to do approximately 10 total in any program year, but that's not likely. We only ran into 2 issues for 2 properties in this program year. One of the applications that did run into that problem withdrew their application, and the other one did remove the actual step encroachment, which you saw in that photo. So we don't necessarily have an inventory at this point to know how many properties actually encroach on town property. It is kind of, we review it when the application comes in. And so if we do have that issue, we address it at the time of application.
Thank you, and sorry, through you, Your Worship, just one more question. So Councillor DeMoff had asked about owners sort of having to wait 2 years, so it would be 2016. From what I'm understanding, this is a pilot project. We're asking to continue it for this year. Is this sort of an open-ended pilot, or are there timelines we're looking at, or are we just going to keep going until? I mean, what is there a timeline on this? Sorry.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor. It is when we first put it forward, it was for a 5-year pilot program. So we just completed year 1, and we're going into year 2 in 2015.
I think we're into second timers now. Councillor Khan.
Thank you. This is a question that came to me as Councillor DeMoff was talking. So you said something about the 2 years as well. So maybe you can clarify. If I, just to make sure there was no abuses, if I was a property owner, could I take a $50,000 project and divide that over 5 years and ask for a 10,000 grant every year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it would be very difficult to do that, only because any time they apply, we do ask to see 2 improvements. And we do look to make sure that they are of a substantial nature, not just smaller kind of incremental things. They would have to wait the 2 full years after they did complete the first year's project. And in that next year, they'd have to, again, do 2 improvements. So we did try to set it up that approach, you really couldn't abuse the program in that way. But it is open and flexible to allow for that. If there is multiple tenants in a building that want to take up the program, that's why we have that.
Concern is that if a property owner has 5 tenants, he or she could strike a deal with the 5 tenants that this year you apply, subsequently you apply. And so basically in the 5 years, that owner is getting improvements to his or her property, but under different business names. Am I reading this right? Is that a potential?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, they can't apply it in the next year. They have to wait 2 years. But it is difficult in the sense that there are buildings that are condos currently that are divided up under individual ownership, where they look like one building, but they are individual condos. So they could apply individually because they are separately owned, versus a larger building that may have one tenant in it, that the $10,000 might not stretch as far. So we did try to create a process that was fair by allowing some of that flexibility. But that's.
I guess this is a pilot project, so if there are certain concerns, we'll revisit it, right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes.
I think Councillor Lapworth is next.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify on page 68 that we only reimburse up to 50% of the eligible expenses, not 100%. 10,000 for regular buildings and 12,500 for corner lots. Is that right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
That might reduce abuse, Councillor Khan. Councillor Elgar.
Okay, now that we're into this, I want to understand it an awful lot better where the money is going. So, in your report, you had in a pot 150,000. We only spent 30,000, 29,562. So we got 120,000 in the pot. There's another 35,000 that we approved in 2014, didn't get spent. Say it gets spent in 2015. Which pot is it coming out of? Because if it's not out of the 2014 pot, it's got to be the 2015 pot, but I thought I heard you say, no, that money comes out of the 2015 pot, not the 2014 pot, even though it's committed to it, not spent.
Councillor.
How does that work?
Councillor, I believe he was clear that let's call it the surplus or the unspent money, we'll call it, from the 2014 year, goes back to the mother pot. And if the 2015 pot should prove to be insufficient, council can go to the mother pot for more.
So then we can go to the mother pot, so that's fine. So then I said, this is working so well, I'm going to put another application in 2016, because the other one was from 2014. So which mother pot is it coming out of?
The 5-year program will have a pot each year that's $150,000, and any unspent money goes back to the mother pot. And whatever the individual applicant may wish to do, you're funding half of whatever you're asking for.
Okay, so then I can apply in 2016 for something that really I only did in 2015, is what you're saying, if I put it in and ask for it in 2014. It isn't a 2-year jump.
The one thing you can't do is get paid twice.
No. I want to know on the year. Is it when the year it's committed or the year it is spent? Because if it's the year it's committed, I can do something in 2014. It's committed, but he didn't do it. He can apply, and then he can do something in 2015, but he can also apply again in 2016, which is only a 1-year gap. And I'm just trying to make sure we're all on the same page.
All right, Councillor. I believe it was very clear from the staff that it's a calendar year thing. I don't know how we're harmed in any way if owners or tenants of property spend 50% of the cost of improving the business district and improve in the process the outcome. I mean, they're doing what we want. What we want is for the business district to use Section 37 money to upgrade itself and become more attractive. So
I don't think you heard what I'm asking. I'm asking a simple question, and I really expect there's an answer, no or yes. I applied in 2014. I got the commitment. I didn't spend the money in 2014. I spent the money in 2015. Can I apply in 2016 for another grant and get a stamp of approval, yes or no, from the town? Because I haven't had the 2-year gap of completion. I have had only a 1-year gap. That's the simple question I would like answered.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe it's from the time of completion. So once we complete and sign off, then it's 2 years.
So then he cannot apply until 2017 for this. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Welcome.
I would ask council to consider if what our goal is and try to stay focused on the outcome that we hope to achieve.
I'm sorry, but there must be a misunderstanding. I absolutely like what we're doing. I think it's a great program. I just want to make sure that everybody out there knows the rules they're playing by. Is it application or is it completion? And then the 2-year gap. So, I love it. I think that, and I really have noticed it on Kerr Street, so I commend those that have done it, and I'm hoping more will.
Thank you. I appreciate the way you've helped to clarify that for everybody. Anyone else? Is there any chance of a motion? Councillor Duddick moves the staff recommendation. All those in favor?
Your worship.
Opposed, if any? And, sorry, the motion is made. Councillor Robinson, I
I'd like to make an
apologize.
amendment.
You have an amendment.
Yes, Your Worship. I was very impressed with the success of this initiative. I didn't realize it was going to come forward the way it did. And it gave me the opportunity to think about an option for Bronte to get involved in some of this 37 section money, the bonusing money. So I talked with staff this afternoon, and they assisted me in preparing an amendment, and they call it item number 4. And I've also spoke with Councillor O'Mara about this, and I believe he's supportive. So I would just like to read the amendment, if I can. If I can, would you read it?
Considering your voice, would you like someone else to read it for you? The mayor, I mean, I'm willing to read it
Go
for
right
you.
ahead and read it, yeah.
All right. This is moved by Councillor Robinson to add a 4th section to this, which I also support, that staff report back on the timing and type of community improvement plan and funding sources that may be appropriate for Bronte Village following the conclusion of the growth area review and Livable Oakville Plan policy update for Bronte Village. Councillor Dudek?
I'm supportive of the initiative, what he's trying to put forward. My only question is tying it to the motion with the CUR. In other words, are we going ahead and approving Bronte Village, or are we just asking for the funding sources and possibilities? In other words, will it be discussed at a future date?
The motion's very clear that 1, 2, and 3 are operative to move the Kerr Street matter ahead as desired. And the piggyback, the additional element from Councillor Robinson, only asks staff to separately develop opportunities for Bronte after the conclusion of the growth area review and the Livable Oakville Plan policy update for Bronte Village. So I see no jeopardy to Kerr, nor would I support this if it offered any jeopardy to
No,
Kerr.
I'm not saying there's any jeopardy. You misunderstand me. I'm just thinking in terms of keeping it clean. I was thinking, why wouldn't it be a request for a report, come back separately, rather than going on this item with the recommendation? That's the only concern I had.
Well, you raise a good point, but staff had the opportunity to consider the matter and offered this as their suggestion. It's certainly valid to do it the other way as well, though. I totally agree with you on that. So it's really, I think it's council's choice. And in our collegial way, why don't we ask if Ward 2 is happy to proceed this way, or if you'd prefer the other?
I think have it on the separate staff report, and I'd be happy to second it, although we don't have it in this. I just want to keep things clean so that it's a separate issue.
All righty then. Councillor Demoff, you were next.
Same thing, I'm fine.
Thank you very much. And so you agree with that? All righty. So the amendment is on the floor, and to accommodate Ward 2, the amendment would need to be defeated. And to accommodate Ward 1, the amendment would need to be passed. All those,
Your
Councillor
Worship,
Robinson?
I'll withdraw the amendment and I'll remove it as a motion.
Well,
Yeah, and I'll start it as a motion,
when do you think you'll give us a motion?
right as soon as we pass hers.
No, see, under the procedure bylaw, what they're proposing to you is that you go through the avenue of a request for report.
Waive the procedural bylaw, and I move we do.
I'm sorry?
I move we waive the procedural bylaw to deal with this tonight as a separate motion.
All right. Just a moment.
You gotta wait to propose a motion until we deal with the motion on the floor first. And then when that's dealt with, then you can propose a motion to waive the procedural bylaw.
Yeah. I think I'm done. Yeah, thanks.
All right, I'm going to accept the motion to waive the procedural bylaw. You can't. They take precedence one after another. Procedural bylaw first, amendment next, and then main motion. To waive the procedural bylaw requires a majority, 3/4 of the entire, 2/3 or 3/4 of the entire council. 2/3? Pardon? So I think that's 10. I'm sorry?
What are we waiving the bylaws for?
So that Ralph can introduce his motion.
9. You're adding request for report onto the agenda, right?
Sorry, are we not adding a request to report, or is it a motion?
Well, he said motion, and I have to go by what the member says. I've suggested to him that the better route is a request for report, but the member has indicated that he wants to move a motion.
So if we have a motion, though, are we not looking at something where it's a, can we waive the rules to have a request for a report done at Planning and Development Council?
We can waive the rules with a vote of 10 for anything you like. The request was to waive it to introduce a motion.
9.
All right. Council, I'm just going to indicate that I'm not going to support waiving the rules. I think our procedure for moving things forward works fine. There's no, I mean, the request is for something to happen after the conclusion of the growth area review and the livable Oakville plan policy update. There can't possibly be any sense of urgency to this request, and it can wait till the council meeting, at which time a request for report could be brought without any muss or fuss. So I'll call the vote on waiving the procedural bylaw, but I'm myself going to vote against it. All those in favor of waiving the procedure bylaw to introduce a motion? That fails. So now we're going to move to the main motion because the amendment was withdrawn. All those in favor of the main motion? Hallelujah. That carries. And Councillor Knoll was true to his conflict of interest and did not vote. And all those in favor of the main motion? And let the minutes show now that Councillor Knoll was away from the table at the time of the vote. And Councillor Robinson, I will happily support your request for report at council, and I believe all the rest of us will as well.
I was just trying to make it simple, and I know that Diane was too. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great working with you. Now that brings us to number 5, the recommendation report, zoning bylaw amendment for Willow Bay Rickmar Ballantree Homes at 2390 Calsa Gate. And if we will give our attention to Rob Thun, he will review for the public and us the matter we have all studied so carefully. And Mr. Thun, I turn to you with relief.
Thank you,
We
Mayor
are all
Burton and
ears.
members of council. This is a recommendation meeting on a zoning bylaw amendment application submitted by Willow Bay Rickmar, more commonly known as Ballantree Homes, for the development of their site at 2390 Calsa Gate for 370 apartment units. The report can be found on page 87 of tonight's agenda, and staff have also provided council with a memo and a revised bylaw for consideration following my presentation. The air photo on the slide above provides a context for the surrounding area. Surrounding land uses, as you can see from the air photo, Brawny Road and residential are to the west. Calsa Gate and some residential are to the east and the south. And Pine Glen Road and residential are to the north. The Peppergate development, which is immediately to the east of this site, is presently under construction. and it is this property right here with the cursor. From the official plan perspective, in livable Oakville, Palermo Village is identified as one of the town's primary growth areas. The site is designated as urban center, and apartments are permitted within that designation. The minimum residential density is 100 units per site hectare for the urban center, and this site, the overall proposal does conform to that density. From a building height perspective in Palermo, the minimum is 2 stories, maximum are 8, except on corner sites, which are 10 stories. The 3 to 10 story development that's being proposed would conform to the height requirements of the livable Oakville plan. From the zoning bylaw perspective, in the old zoning, bylaw 1984-63, the site is zoned R8C and C6A under the special provision 753. R8C does permit apartments. The C6A only permits gas stations. Within bylaw 2014-14, the site is zoned MU3. Apartment dwellings are permitted within the stock permitted uses for the MU3 zone. This is captured within table 8.2 of the new zoning bylaw. The proposed bylaw 2015-05, as revised by staff, amends both the old and the new zoning bylaws, is based on the site being viewed as one lot, because the site is presently 2 blocks within a registered plan of subdivision. It reflects the town's new zoning standards from 2014. It also outlines minimum number of units, establishes front lot lines, yards, heights, and parking standards. The memo that is before council right now, staff noted through preparation of this presentation that there were some typographical and consistency matters that needed correction, and that is contained within the memo that is before council presently. The development plan itself, taking one step back, the public information meeting was held on June 18th. One member of the public attended. The statutory public meeting was held on September 8th, 2014. No members of the public spoke at all at that meeting. So the slide before council right now shows 122 units in a 3-story apartment form on the northerly part of the site, and that represents block 1. So for council's information, it is in this upper portion right here. 248 units in a 10-story apartment form on the southerly part of the site represents block 2. 2 access points from Colsa Gate for the entire development are proposed. First, the southerly one being in between the 3-story and the 10-story, and the other is at the most northerly point of the subject property. As you can see, there are no access points to this site from Bronny Road, being a regional and major arterial road. From a conceptual elevations perspective, the slide depicts the conceptual elevations for both the apartment development, both the 3-story and the 10-story. The views that are before council right now, 2 of the views are from Colsa Gate, the 3rd is from Bronny Road, the most southerly one. And the bottom one does show the potential for parking underground, or the proposed parking underground, I should say. Additionally, as part of the recommendation, staff have put forth a deeming bylaw which would combine blocks 134 and 144 of Plan 20M930, as the 3-story apartment form does straddle the mutual block line. And with the deeming bylaw, it would be considered as one large block to be developed, or lot to be developed, and that is consistent with the zoning provision that we've also included within bylaw 2015-005. So in conclusion, your worship, staff have provided you with an amended recommendation and amended zoning bylaw. It is captured in the recommendation that is before council and on the slide right now, and it is captured within the memo that is before you on your tables.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Thun. Council, are there questions? Councillor Elgar.
Yeah, it's nice to get something revised recommendation so fast. that we just seen since we came here at 7 o'clock. What's really different on this, this recommendation, revised recommendation you have?
The changes that were made, as I had mentioned, they are consistency and typographical matters. As an example, in the old zoning bylaw on page 116 is an example, item E and F. In the new zoning bylaw, the minimum interior side yard is 0. So we have shown 3.5. So for consistency purposes between the old and the new zoning bylaw, we've made that 0. The minimum rear yard along Brawny Road originally is shown as 2 in the old bylaw. If you look at item number 4, F, it says minimum rear yard for all portions of a building is 0. So there's a consistency issue there. And then some typographical matters related to address and a few typos. They are, I'm sorry?
Sorry, Mr. Lund. The stacked townhouse, it shows 123, and then it shows 122. Originally, it was 123, and they cut them all the way back to 122, is that?
The application that was originally submitted identified the 3-story units as stacked townhouses at 123. In actual fact, based on the zoning and a building permit or building department review, they're actually considered as apartments as opposed to stacked townhouses because of a common hallway between the units.
So so we lost a unit though because of that?
We lost a unit as the applicant looked at how everything worked from a layout perspective, and they did lose 1 unit, yes.
So with this application, I note, which always happens, the 3-story apartment, as you call it today, not the other type, will get probably built first.
Correct.
What do you think is going to happen when the people start to, they'd come back and they already have approval for a 10-story apartment building that are close to that area?
Well, we do have a next step in the process. We have the condominium process. So there's condominium declarations that need to be put in place. There's also a site plan process where there's a site plan agreement where warning clauses can also be included in that, advising them that to the south there is a 10-story apartment building that has been approved.
How can we make it so that we as council afterwards aren't left, with an awful lot of back and forth, because the people that bought those 3-story apartments had no idea whatsoever there was going to be a 10-story building to the south of them?
Well, as part of...
How can we make it finally work? It's not unique to this application. It's happening everywhere, and every application we seem to get. What can we do differently?
Sorry. As part of the due diligence when you're purchasing a lot of people come to the town and look at the zoning. Okay, and when you see the zoning that it's already approved in place, you do have the ability to see that, okay, there's a 3-story on the north and a 10-story to the south. Also, as part of purchasing, you will be getting a condominium declaration. It's also contained within that. So there are mechanisms already in place. The person inquiring has to look for that.
And that's exactly my concern. And we all know the person that's going to buy looks at what he sees and he says, hey, this looks good, 3 stories. He has no idea what's going to go to the south of him. Can we have it put in place at the sales trailer, in fact, that I assume Mr. Beulah will have, that he would actually show a 10-story what's recommended to the south, or what is already the approved zoning? Like, could that be done? And could we put that in so that we don't have this issue going forward? When the people who have bought their 3-story find out when they move in that in fact there is already pre-approved for a 10-story building. Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, we can deal with that through the site plan or condominium.
The site plan for the
A
3-story.
condominium.
So before anything goes for sale, we can ensure that happens through site plan?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Elgar. I know that's not the first time you've asked that question. Councillor O'Meara.
Thanks so much, through your worship. Rob, thanks for this. I have to tell you honestly that I am gravely concerned when I hear that one person showed up at a public consultation for this project. And I note that, in the revised recommendations, that in accordance with the Planning Act, no further notice is determined to be necessary. That raises alarm bells with me that a project of this magnitude, we are not getting to a wide enough swath of people that are going to be impacted. The last planning development meeting, we had random homes that had taken the efforts of contacting the town or the developer on the property. They were the only ones who were contacted, so there seemed to be these homes getting skipped. I'm just wondering whether we're satisfied with the amount of public consultation that has gone through on this, where only one person would show up, or if you think we need to do more to let the people maybe in a larger catchment of area know about this project.
If I can maybe assist through you, Mr. Mayor, I think over the years that we have been moving forward in terms of improving our public consultation in every opportunity we can. And I think probably the lack of people out is a bit of a testament to the work that's happened in the Palermo Center and our Livable Oakville plan and the zoning bylaw, which has all looked at policies to create this as a growth area. So I think there is some general understanding, and we can read from that a general understanding that there is permissions given within this growth area through all of those processes to allow for higher density development. Where you saw people coming out in this area is where they directly back onto it. And so I think Councillor Elgar's comment about how can we do better about informing people abutting the property of their of the changes or the things that will happen in the future, we do need to do that, and we have put in place a number of initiatives through North Oakville, which we hope will pan out and be able to inform people better when they purchase about what they're buying into. So I would not assume that in this particular case, when you only see 3 or 1 people coming out, that they haven't been notified. I think they have been notified and they understand clearly what the process is in front of them. I think that, given the number of consultations we've had in this area, is what I would take from that attendance.
Thanks, I guess we'll see.
Before we go a second time to you, Councillor Elgar, I saw a first hand from Councillor Demoff.
Thank you. Just a quick question following on what Councillor Elgar was asking. We put signs up about schools. Is there any possibility of having a similar type sign on properties where there is a 10-story that says a 10-story building has been approved on this site, or something, wording along those lines, so that as people drive by, they can see that there's no school being planned, but they can also see that there's what is planned on a separate area? Can we require that?
Through you, Your Worship, through the condominium process, typically the Halton School Board and the Halton District School Board require that signs be posted on the sites advising the general public as to what schools that the children would be going to. So there are signs that are posted.
But my question isn't about the schools. It's, can we require that they put a sign up that says there's a 10-story apartment building planned at this location?
We can't require the landowner to put up a sign without an application being put in place. It's an advertising sign that I believe that you're asking for.
No, it's more along the lines of what the school board does. So the school board says we're not planning on building a school here. Can we say that this particular site is zoned for a 10-story apartment building? Just some way of notifying people, that similar to what Councillor Elgar was talking about, so that we don't have a whole bunch of people coming and saying, I had no idea it was going to be there. So not saying that it's just if this board can say that what they're gonna be planning in the area, I'm just wondering, why can't we say this is what is proposed? Not that it's a sales sign, it's more, just like we do for committee of adjustment, that an application has been put in. I mean, I'm sure staff could come up with the appropriate wording, but something where people, when they are going there, if they do, will see a sign that says what is proposed on that area, that site.
Perhaps I can suggest that's something we would report further back, just as a staff direction in terms of what are the other opportunities for notifying the public. I mean, our first impression is that that's not something we're able to do, but let us check into it and report further.
I just wanted to ask a question concerning them. Okay, it's 8 stories, but we can allow 10 on a corner lot. Is that correct?
Through your worship, that is correct.
Okay, so what is our definition of a corner lot?
You have, through your worship, you have Calsa Gate on at least 2 corners of the site, down to the south, right here, the intersection, and Calsa Gate right here. And for that fact, you have Brawny Road to the west. It's actually 3-sided. You have a regional arterial road. You have Calsa Gate with a small stub of it at the bottom end, and you have Calsa Gate going north-south.
Okay, so the definition then is the address, the street
It's
names.
the physical nature of the road and the layout of the property.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thun, how many notices would have been sent out to the surrounding neighbors that are within, is it 120 meters of this property?
I don't know, through your worship, I do not know the number of notices that went out, but the complete notice application, the public information meeting, and statutory public meeting all go through 120 meters from the property boundary.
So when I look at 120 meters from the property boundary, I'm just wondering, were any notices sent out?
Absolutely.
Would they, so they jump across Brawny Road to the west too?
Yes, they do.
Would have, eh?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, because I think the one gentleman that came to the meeting that night, I think he's moved on. Anyway, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. Just a question about precedence, and I understand that we can do 8 to 10 stories. Tomorrow at site plan, actually, we're contemplating a property that's 8 stories tall, so you can do your acid test for any of that stuff there. But I'm wondering about stepping back. The whole plan that we had, I thought, was stepping back from a major road. And so we've got Dundas, and we step back to 8 stories, and we step up to 10 stories, and then down to 3. Is that setting a bad precedent of some sort for the expansion of North Oakville?
Through your worship, I don't think it's setting a precedent. The policies within the Livable Oakville plan, being that this is a growth area, allow for development to occur in Palermo from the 2 range up to 10. Applications coming forward to council, if they comply with the 2 to 10 range, comply with the Livable Oakville plan.
So Palermo is almost a separate animal from the other plan?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just one final question on this, Mr. Thun, and it has to do with not setting precedent. And all I want is your assurance that we have not switched any zoning where what was 3 becomes now 10, any part of this property. And you know why I'm asking that, because what is actually happening right across the road is an application we have also, where part of it is, like there's two different zonings, and we want to make sure we don't mess up. I just want to make sure the part that is that we have approved for 10 stories is not moving north. It is staying on that line, on this property.
The way it has been developed through the zoning bylaw, through your worship, block 2 is 10 stories. Okay, the maximum is 10 stories.
And the block 2 line has not
Block
moved.
number 1 is 3 to 8.
Okay.
In the zoning bylaw.
Correct. And the applicant is coming in with 3.
The applicant is coming in with 3, that is correct.
Yes, not even 8.
Theoretically, the Livable Oakville plan says it can go to 2. He is coming in with 3. okay? Zoning bylaw, if you look at section 15.5 or 358.2 regulations for block 1, the minimum number of stories is 3, the maximum number of stories is 8. The minimum number of dwelling units is 122.
Okay. My concern was if the line had moved from, you know, and that, because
The block line, through your worship, the block line has been established in the zoning bylaw.
Excellent, thank you, because there's another, you know where I'm going with the other one. Thank you.
Councillor Elgar, I wonder if I could look to you for a motion.
Yes, your worship, I will move the staff recommendation. And I really look forward to seeing it at site plan so that we can set up the sales trailer, hopefully, so that anybody coming in wanting to purchase will see what could be to the south. So at least they'll go in with eyes wide open. So thank you for all the information and all the questions I had. Thanks very much. Sorry?
Thank you, Councillor Elgar.
The revised, I guess that would be the revised revisions also for whatever the typos were.
Yes. So before I call the vote, I just want to ask Mr. Bula if you have anything you want to say. Any last minute curveballs?
First of all, congratulations to all of you for being the leaders for this lovely municipality once again. And I see a lot of discussion that just took place on this particular site, which is pretty standard application in reality. I want to mention one thing, because in case this comes back to council or this committee, there has been a request by a company to see if they can do a retirement home on this particular location that you talked about, Mr. Elgar, the 10-story. And if I do come in with that application, they are talking maybe 8-story high. And the other thing that they talked about is a lesser density, because for the retirement home, for them to cater to the seniors, they cannot handle that many people if it's a 240 odd units. I just wanted to kind of inform you guys, it's not there yet, but if it comes, because personally I feel I should be fair to the seniors as well, because the town has gone through, and is still going through, quite a bit of landscaping design on the old Kelso Gate or the old Bronte Road, which is going to be a beautiful walkable avenue. And that's about all that I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Mr. Bula, you heard me talking about in the sales trailer when people are coming in to look at buying the 3 stories. Are you amenable, like going forward? We'll discuss it site plan, but would you be okay with explaining what could be going to the south, 10 stories or whatever it is that would that be in your sales trailer too?
I don't want to make a commitment, because right now, like I just said, in case I come before the committee again with a retirement home, then it won't be the same. So me answering something right now would not be correct. But I've worked in this town of Oakville for so many years. I don't think I've ever had any problems with anybody.
So when would you be going to market to start selling these 3-story apartments?
Well, for right now, I gotta wait till I get all my approvals through, so it'll take a while. In the meantime, by that time, I should know if I do have somebody for the retirement home. We can talk.
Okay, yeah, because that's my only concern, because it happens all the time where people
No,
want,
understand.
not going, so,
I understand.
okay, thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bula. Thank you, Councillor Elgar. I'll put the motion before you, Council. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, and that carries. Council, you've done a lot of good work so far tonight, and I have to ask you to look at the advisory committee minutes from Heritage Oakville. Councillor Duddick.
Be pleased to move the approval.
Councillor Duddick moves the approval and the receipt of the minutes. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, and that carries. Could I have a motion to rise and report? Councillor Robinson, thank you very much. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. I rise and report that the Committee of the Whole has met and made recommendations on consent items 1 and 2, confidential consent items C1 and C2, public hearing item 3, discussion items 4 and 5, advisory committee minutes item 6, as noted by the clerk. And I now need a mover and a seconder that the report and recommendations of the Committee of the Whole be approved. Councillor Grant moves. Councillor Giddings seconds. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? The report is adopted. New business, emergency, congratulatory, condolence. Nothing tonight? Dig deep. Councillor O'Meara.
Sorry not to hold council up. I want to offer my condolence on the passing of my sister-in-law to the Mello family, former manager of the downtown Oakville Sanctuary Spa. She has succumbed to cancer at 37, went too early, and just through you, your worship, on behalf of council and your worship, we offer our condolences to her family. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We all extend our best wishes. I wonder if we could look for a mover and seconder for the bylaws. Councillor Lapworth, Councillor Elgar. This is the consideration and reading of the bylaws is listed in the agenda and as revised in the case of 2015-05. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? And the bylaws are adopted. That completes our agenda. It's been terrific working with you, and I really thank you for the time and attention you've devoted tonight, and we are adjourned.